We just finished adding a bunch of responsive design to our landing page. Now I'd like to head over to that landing page and check out how we can use some tools inside Google Chrome to simulate mobile devices and make sure that everything checks out there. We'll probably have some things to iron out, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so I'm here at localhost 8000, and if I go ahead and inspect the page here, then up at the top, I'll get out of this real quick. Up at the top here where we can see our elements or our console, sources, and network, go ahead and there's also these two buttons here at the top left, and one of those looks like the shortcut for this is Command Shift and M, or that'd be Control Shift and M on Windows, or you can just click this little button that looks like a phone and a tablet. If you go ahead and click that, that opens up the device simulator. Alright, so then here at the top, we can actually select which device we would like to view our website on. And this way we can really make sure that our styles are going to work exactly as we intend on mobile. I always like to use the Moto G4 or the Galaxy S5. They're both the same screen size because these are the smallest screen sizes that you'll probably need to anticipate users for. Now, if you go to the responsive screen size, you can actually enter a custom dimensions, and you can see that you can get just ridiculously small. You can do 100 by 100, and of course things are going to completely break and look terrible for that, but you can also reasonably expect you're not going to have any devices of those dimensions, so it's not really a problem. So I'll just stick to the Moto G4. And if you did need custom dimensions or a specific device for your project, that would be how you make sure that you can test that out. So as you can see, things obviously don't look exactly the same here as they did at our extra small breakpoint just by resizing the browser. That's because this is a little bit thinner than that is, and so things are going to be scrunched together a little bit more, so we'll have to adjust our styles accordingly. Thankfully though, we know this is just at the extra small breakpoint, so we can just add our extra small exceptions and everything else will still work out. Now, what I like to do for this is I like to kind of scroll through and look for whatever seems to be causing the biggest issues and start there. So you see all this extra overflow that we've got. Well, it looks like this icon here is spanning the entire width, so that's probably a good place to start. So let's go ahead and open up the code editor. And we'll go into our call to action.js. And if we find the image that we're rendering there, it looks like we're not adjusting that style at all currently. So let's go ahead and give it a class name of classes.icon. And then we can come up and create the icon class. We'll go ahead and make sure to only do this for the theme.breakpoints.down for extra small. So if we're at extra small, then let's go ahead and set a height of 18 rem and a width of 20 rem. So we'll go ahead and save that and flip back on over, and you can see that shrinks down to what looks like a much more appropriate size. So now we can keep working through this, and the next thing that's actually overflowing is our marketing buttons. Our marketing buttons, see how they're cut off a little bit here? So let's go ahead and adjust these a little bit as well. So we'll open up our marketingbuttons.js, and we'll go ahead, and we've already set our extra small styles here, but let's shrink it down just a little bit more to just a height and width of 20 rem. And then if you notice up here, we're setting a margin of 3 rem for the large breakpoint, and that was to space them out from one another. But here, we know that we won't want any margin on the left and right because that might be causing some overflow, but we still want some spacing in between our buttons. So here, in between them vertically, so let's just change this to a margin of 2 rem and 0. So that'll go ahead and not give us any margin on the sides, but keep some spacing in between them vertically. So let's go ahead and save that. We'll see this jump, and now that looks much better, except that now our text and our icon are too big. Now, one other thing I'd like to also change here is the hover style is going to work a little bit weird here on mobile because there's not actually a way for us to hover with our fingers for our phones to detect that. So let's actually go ahead and where we're previously setting our hover for the base button style, let's go ahead and on extra small, we can go ahead and override that to just a hover scale of 1, and so the size will not change. So let's go ahead and save that, but then we need to adjust our icon and our label sizes. So here we're setting it for the small breakpoint. Let's go ahead and copy that, and for the extra small breakpoint, now we can change our icon height and width to just 5 rem to shrink that down a little bit, and we'll go ahead, shrink down our font size for extra small to just 2.25 rem. So let's go ahead and save that and flip back on over, and nice, I think that looks really good. Now you can see the spacing is still off a little bit, but that's actually just because of the overflow that we have going on here, but that's not coming from these buttons themselves anymore. One other thing we should fix here, if you go into the console, you may have noticed an error here, if I scroll up, saying that each child in a list should have a unique key prop, and that's because we forgot here where we're mapping over our buttons, we didn't give this a key property for React to be able to tell these apart, so we'll give it a key of button.label. We'll go ahead and save that, and when this refreshes, we can go ahead and refresh the page, and now the error is gone. So now if we scroll up here to the top of the page, it looks like these are doing great. That's pretty close, but we can tell that our animation is too big. So let's go ahead and reduce the size of our animation, and we'll probably make some other changes, maybe to this text as well, because I think that that's probably a little bit too big for this mobile screen. So let's go ahead, and this will be in our HeroBlock.js, and we've already set up our responsive styles for the Lottie component and the size of our animation, but the extra small should probably be a little bit smaller. So from 25 rem, let's change that to 20. Go ahead and save, and nice. Now that is fitting nicely within the bounds here. Let's also go ahead, shrink down this heading text. So we'll go and find our H1 here and give it a classes of root, and then classes.heading. Then we can come up, create our heading class, and do this just for the theme.breakpoints.down for extra small, and we'll change this to a font size of just 3 rem. So go ahead and save that. We'll flip on over, and nice. I think that is a much better size. Actually, let's try 3.5 rem and save. And I think that works, but it looks like I think we're still having a little too much padding here on the sides. So remember, we set a padding of 2 rem for our text container to make sure that the text doesn't go all the way to the edge. But since we're on a tiny screen here, let's go ahead and add a theme.breakpoints.down for extra small for our text container and reduce that padding to just 1 rem. So if we go ahead and save that, then we should see that now it breaks to the same line here, and I think that looks a little bit cleaner. Now, one thing we can check out, if we go ahead and inspect the element here on our promo block, we see that that is actually causing some overflow again. So that's actually coming from the margin that we're using to space out our elements here. So we can actually just get rid of this because I think that it looks really nice here, the way that we have the size and the way that it just goes about to the edge, but not quite. But it's just that margin that's causing some issue. All right, so normally I don't like to use this as an excuse or a quick fix rather. I like to make sure the styles are exactly within the bounds of the screen, but since it's just a margin here, we can use a little trick to get rid of it. So if we go to our promo products.js, we can set on our main container, we can give it, and let's actually just do this for the, of course, the theme.breakpoints.down for extra small. Let's give it an overflow of hidden. So if we go ahead and save that, now you can see the screen jumped and that extra space that is being overflowed from this component is now hidden. So that's not something you should use all the time. If your styles are overflowing, you should make sure that they are working correctly. But since this is a bit of a weird component and we had to use that margin for spacing, and it's just a margin, not necessarily any content that's causing the overflow, I think it's okay in this case. Now we're almost there, but you might be able to tell there's just a very thin line of overflow still going on here. So that's actually coming from our call to action, but this time, if we go ahead and inspect here, we can see that it's actually margin, or padding rather, that we're setting on the text that is pushing it in a little bit, but that's extending it all the way to the edges of the screen and causing some overflow. So since we're at this small screen size, let's go ahead in the call to action, and let's see, here in the heading container and the body text, let's go ahead and add, we'll copy this, we'll go ahead and add it for just the extra small breakpoint. Let's just go ahead and zero out this padding so it gets rid of that overflow. Go ahead and zero it out. Make sure we do this for the extra small breakpoint. Go ahead and save that. And if we flip on over, now you can see that that extra spacing is no longer there. The overflow is hidden, and I think that looks just fine. It doesn't look like the text is squished up too much, so I think that this will work. So we just really cleaned this up. Now we have no horizontal scrolling or overflow going on, and everything, we can test this, still works out and it looks great. So everything is looking good except for our header up here. So let's go ahead and take care of that real quick. Now we haven't actually done anything to really resize these for smaller screens, so I think it's probably a good idea to just shrink those down a little bit for our extra small breakpoint, and then everything should look nice. So here for our icon text, or our icon class rather, this is controlling the size of our icons here, the search, cart, and menu. Let's go ahead and change these for our theme.breakpoints.down for extra small to just a height of 2 rem and a width of 2 rem as well. So go ahead and save that. We see those guys shrink down. So now let's just shrink down our text a little bit. So we actually need to add a new style because right now we just have the logo text class on the var part of our text, but not the var x. And so let's go ahead and just give the typography the classes root classes dot logo, and then we can come up. Let's make sure we don't already have just a logo class. I don't think we do. So we'll just have a logo, and then go ahead and give it a font size of just 3 rem. We can go ahead and save that. And now we see that jumps down to a much nicer size for this smaller screen. Just one last thing that I'd like to nitpick. I think that these are probably just a little too close to each other and probably a little too much space here on the sides. So what we can do is that's actually coming from, if we inspect that space here, and let's go ahead and go into this, or go up rather. Here we go. So you can see that those green boxes on the left and right sides, that's actually a bit of padding, and that's coming from the toolbar. It's coming from the toolbar component that we use to create our header, the app bar and the toolbar. But on the toolbar, we can go ahead and disable gutters to get rid of that. Disable gutters. Go ahead and save that. Now it's going to get rid of that padding, leaving us looking just like this, and I think that that looks perfect. So now we've really gone and fine-tuned all of the responsive design for our mobile page on the header, or on the entire landing page rather. We have a completely responsive and mobile-friendly landing page, and we know now for sure, using the device simulator, that it works correctly and looks great on small devices. So this will be a pattern that we'll follow throughout the rest of the course, and one that I encourage you to use in your own projects.